Well, hello. It's Roger here from Experience Your Life. Welcome to this Hangout, which continues the series we started a few weeks ago, looking at bringing you into a greater awareness of what's going on internally and helping you, supporting you, develop some tools, techniques, and skills to improve the relationships that you have in the world, whether that's relationships with family and friends, with colleagues, with customers, clients, or the people in the greater world, people in your tribe whom you would like to get into a better connection with so that they're aware of what you're doing, where you're coming from, your authenticity, and you can relate to them in a way that's quite empathic so that they genuinely get what you're about. And it just makes the flow of energy from you to them so much easier. So, if you followed the series so far, you'll know we spent some time looking at self-awareness and the various strategies that you can use to better understand your own story, you along the way, that give you a certain perspective on the world, that inform your values, and the way that you frame things, so that when you're looking at events, you're able to determine whether or not your response is completely in line with everything that you hold dear, or if you're encountering some resistance. And if you are, what you can do to reduce or perhaps even eliminate it, move forward in a much easier way so that your day has fewer peaks and troughs. It's just a smooth, high performing curve, and that people who encounter you are getting the best of you, whether that's a colleague who needs to collaborate with you on a project, whether it's a prospect that you need to attract and tell a little bit more about your services, your products, the things that you offer to the world. Or if it's somebody who's just encountering you online and really appreciates the tone that you use, the insights that you offer, the connections that you bring, or the signposts that you include so that they know that they're always going to get the good stuff when they're encountering you. So that was self-awareness. Then we got into looking at empathy, which is a huge box when you open it up and see what's going on in there. It's about how you relate to other people, the impression that they get of you, the way that they walk away from you, and the things that they feel as a consequence of having encountered you. And I shared with you at that time the Maya Angelou quote, where she reflected on the fact that when people meet you, they don't necessarily remember what you said, and perhaps they won't even remember what you did, but they will remember the way you made them feel. And so empathy is about the feeling side of you and what you bring to the table in an established or new relationship. So if you've had the chance to look at those earlier Hangouts, great, because you'll have got some insights, some tools and techniques which you are already using, and they're hopefully reaping dividends for you. You're actually benefiting from them. But there's a natural progression, as far as I can see, from self-awareness through empathy into authenticity. It's all helping you establish a rounded 360 sense of where you're coming from, where you've been, and how that informs where you are right now, and also what you offer out into the world, into all those relationships, into all those experiences, into new encounters and the people you're trying to attract into your service-led, product-led, or collaborative project. So always good to start with a definition, I like to think. I had a look in the dictionary to determine what it was that authenticity was all about. Helpfully, the dictionary said it's the state of being authentic. So maybe that's not so helpful. I went a little further than that, though, and thought about what it is to be genuine, to have very little distance between the way you look, your age, your build, your height, your ethnicity, etc. The stuff that's going on inside of you, your personal story, the way that all of your experiences, attitudes, beliefs, values combine to make you, you, and the distance between what's inside, what's obvious and apparent, and the rest of the world. Now, perhaps it's the case that you have encountered people who are completely authentic. You get a complete sense of who they are. There's no filter, in other words. There's nothing being held back. They are three-dimensional, vivid. They leave you with a lasting impression. Going back to the Maya Angelou quote, you feel, yeah, I really can see where that person's coming from. Their passion, their enthusiasm, their sense of self is very much to the fore. And equally, the thing that they're telling you about, whether that's a good, a service, some project that they're involved with, you can completely get it because it's very vivid. There's no words. That's authenticity. That's the measure of the person that the person that you're meeting, rather, and the way you encounter them. There's no filter. It's all flow. I was looking also at the way that you could capture that in a sort of a quote or what have you, because I like my quotes and I like my stats. What I recognized was something someone said about authenticity, the genuine being how you do what you do, and whether you say and do, whether there's a congruency rather between what you say and what you do, because that's the point at which there's no hidden agendas, there's no sense of manipulation or selling a story or whatever. It's just the way you are. And I certainly remember meeting a manager many, many years ago who was completely just like that, total authenticity. Sat down, explained where he was coming from. I was new to the team, and he just laid it all out there. This is what home life was like for him. This is why he was doing this particular job. This is how enthusiastic he was about it, because he could see the value that it was offering to the world, and he was welcoming me on board to the team. So it was an onboarding exercise, but it just felt completely natural. It didn't feel forced or whatever, like the rule book says I have to do this. He was just an enthusiast in the right job at the right time, welcoming me on board to add value to the whole project and to make things even better for the customers, the end users. Complete authenticity, very easy to do if you're in a place where everything internally lines up. You might remember, if you saw the original Hangout on self-awareness, that there is that hierarchy of needs. Call it Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It was his invention after all. Something of a triangle, yeah? Many of us are in the base sort of area where the important things are food, shelter, clothes on our back. That's kind of what you need to cover as the very basics. Then you get slightly upwards into the pyramid, into the middle area, where you're talking about important connections, feeling a sense of belonging, community, love, family, if you will. That's what's going on in the middle. And then at the pinnacle, right at the top of the triangle, you've got the sweet spot. Sweet spot is very much around being genuine, being authentic, being self-actualized in the jargon. It's where it all comes together because you've got the basics covered, the food, the shelter, etc. The aspirational bits in the middle, love, connection, family, duty, responsibility. The sweet spot is when it all combines and you're out in the world in a vivid way, in a three-dimensional way, in a very present way. You're absolutely in the moment. Whatever happened before doesn't matter so much because you're in the moment, you're loving it, it flows smoothly, there's very little, if any, resistance at all. And that's the place in which people connect on such a profound level that the magic happens. That if you're trying to sell something, it's just so easy because there isn't any resistance at all. If you're trying to pitch a new idea, to innovate or to create, there are no obstacles to you tapping into your creative genius or to that area where you naturally can attune to innovation or initiative or originality. And if you're in that space where you're equally doing the 9 to 5, it all fits nicely because you're doing something that capitalizes on your core skills. You are inhabiting that zone of genius, if you will. And the people with whom you work are naturally attracted to that because you're having a ball and it shows, so that they want to collaborate with you. They're drawn to you. It's excuse me, it's almost magnetic. That's what the word is. It's a magnetic attraction. And when you're in that place, you're fortunate because they're paying you to do something you love, surrounded by people who get it and who are equally enthusiastic. And you're delivering the good stuff for the people out there who also want to tap into a little bit of that because they've heard how good you are, your reputation precedes you, and it's all so very easy. So the state of being genuine, that sort of authenticity, is what I'm talking about. How you bring your particular truth into the moment day by day at every point in the day. So it's not a peak and a trough all the time, where some points in the day are great because you're doing exactly what you should be doing with the people with whom you should be doing it and for the people for whom you should be doing it. And then the trough is you're bogged down in the sticky, grindy, grim, disconnected, disengaged moment where you're wondering what the hell it is you're doing this for because it has no relationship to the thing you actually enjoy. Wouldn't it be great to authentically experience your day? So you're experiencing your day, you're experiencing the entirety of your life in a way that just fits nicely into that sweet spot where you are present, you're connected, you're enthusiastic, engaged, and it shows. It's that magnetic area. And more than that, because it's all authentically you, there's nothing that's tapping you on the shoulder or niggling away at you, thinking, oh, I haven't done that, or I'm neglecting this part of myself, because actually everything that's important to you is out there. You are in the present, and everything else is out there, connecting, engaging, enthusing, all of the good stuff. So I guess the question is, how do you get to authenticity? I mean, all of us aspire towards that kind of a day. I presume that's why you're tuned in to the Hangout. That once it starts, it just keeps getting better, and there aren't any down points in the day. Wouldn't it be nice to live every day like that? But here's the challenge, I suppose, that many of us have had experiences when the day doesn't quite feel like that. Despite our best intentions, despite our clear self-awareness about where our strengths lie, the values that we hold, how our particular skill set is available to others, the sorts of the sorts of being present, being mindful attributes, etc. All of that's there, but we just find ourselves slightly square peg round hole. We'd love to be doing something that ticks all our boxes and authentically represents the very best of us, but for various reasons we find ourselves not quite in the right place. Well, as I was saying on a previous Hangout, which I'd encourage you to visit if you haven't done already, the self-awareness tools and techniques really come into their own in that place because they give you the chance to just check in with yourself. You're asking yourself a couple of questions, really. First, how am I doing today? How do I feel? On a scale of 1 to 10, does this feel like I'm fully engaged, really enthused, connecting with others? I can see the lights in other people's eyes and they're loving what I'm doing. In which case, that's pretty much heading toward fully authentic living. Or, this is the second stage question, isn't it? If I'm at 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10, or lower, what is going on? How can I increase my authenticity? How can I really feel that I'm living my purpose, doing exactly what I should be doing in the right atmosphere to spark off of other people and help them engage with me, and delivering the kind of results that I know I'm capable of for the people out there who would appreciate my genius, my creativity, my innovation, my joy in doing this particular service, producing this particular product, being active in this particular project. So it's finding out from a personal check-in a couple of times a day or more frequently, Is this moment exactly ticking my boxes, helping me be as authentic as I might be? And if it isn't, what do I need to do about it? Two pretty big questions, each of which is underpinned by the themes that I was introducing previously: the self-awareness, self-aware and courageous thing to ask those sorts of questions at any time, but especially during the course of a busy, productive day. 9 to 5, freelance, doesn't matter. And also, there's something around empathy written all the way through that very tough self-investigation, because you have to have an empathic relationship to others, but you also have to be fairly kind to yourself. There's a point, isn't there, where you could beat yourself up about the skills you haven't got, the opportunities that you regret not taking up, the fact that the boss or the colleagues or the clients, etc., just don't understand you. And that can spiral downwards in a way that's really unproductive and doesn't give you any kind of leverage about your future. Or you could be more empathic and kinder to yourself and recognize that, okay, maybe you haven't had all those opportunities to learn, to gain qualifications, to make the connections, to be in the right team with the right boss, etc. But all of that can change if you're willing to embrace the opportunity, if you're ready to change, that is, to embrace that new opportunity. So we've looked at the self-awareness thing and the relationship with the empathy. So what I want to do in the time that remains in this half hour is maybe give you a couple of tools, techniques that you can use in regard of, in respect of rather, the authenticity that you're looking to develop. I'm sure we'd all love to be awesome in our authenticity. It's not a great big leap, it's an incremental process. So let's get you from wherever you are to the next level. I was thinking about how to approach that, and also talking or reflecting rather on some of the coaching I've done with clients for whom authenticity was an issue that was coming up for them. It's almost a fork in the road for some people. I'm thinking of one particular client who was in an organization going through change. Now, this particular client had a self-awareness, had empathy, and in particular recognized their strength was around working with people. They liked the outgoing nature of the job that they used to do, that they were particularly adept at, skilled at, and the fact that so much of it depended on going out, meeting stakeholders, finding out what they were thinking, comparing what they were thinking to the options available to the organization going forward, and then bringing all that hard data back into the organization, laying it all out and saying, right, so we've got some choices. We could do option A, which very much meets what our stakeholding community are looking for in the future from us, or option B, which is much more resource-led. It's about spreadsheets, it's about numbers, it's about targets for the next quarter, and doesn't really reflect or engage too much with what our stakeholders are looking for. So there's A, people-centered, B, spreadsheet-centered. Now, the client reflected they were at the fork in the road because the organization was heading way, way down option B. Resources shrinking, priorities changing, moving from a people orientation, the model A, to model B, which is about how much can we afford to do with the resources available for the next quarter. So authenticity for this client was about their vision, essentially. They loved model A and were used to it. Model B was what was on offer, seemingly, in the future. It was just inevitable. So the client had to really think about the impact of change and whether or not they could authentically represent the organization use their particular skills, be out in the world whenever they were free to do so, engaging with the stakeholders, just saying, option B is now what we're doing. How do you feel about that? And those are pretty profound questions to ask. How do I feel about what I'm doing? That's where the authenticity really hits home. And I keep tapping my chest because I guess it's not an intellectual exercise. It's not about left brain, right brain. It's not about reflection or whatever. It's an instinct. It's how is your heart, how does your gut engage with the situation you find yourself in? That's another measure of authenticity, isn't it? Asking questions is one thing, but what's your instinct telling you? So for the client in question, it was about the realities of Model B. Sometimes we can't be as authentic as we want to be in our particular set of circumstances. We can nonetheless find authenticity in the circumstances that apply. Even in a Model B world, which is driven by spreadsheets, hard targets, quarterly reviews, stats, all of that, there's humanity to be found. And for the client in question, that was a wonderful opportunity to just reorient their thinking a little bit, find their authenticity as much as possible in their given circumstances, and spread their wings within that context and without as well. Do more stuff outside of work, volunteer, reconnect with friends and family, take up those kinds of giving or supportive activities that really make the day feel better and have their own reward built into them. Same as finding full self-expression, full self-actualization, all your values and all your opportunities represented in one place. It's spreading it about a bit, but it gives the same overall results. There's a little bit of tenacity, flexibility, and definitely the ability to change. And those were the sorts of conversations I was having with the client that I was coaching. So taking a step back, is there something in that for you? Can you find that sweet spot where you'd love to be in what you do as a freelance, as a micro business leader within the 9 to 5? Or could you relocate it either at the margins of what you do or outside of what you do? It would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if we all could live absolutely, truly, authentically, and fully and make a living, so that, flipping back to Maslow's hierarchy, our base needs, food, shelter, roof overhead, etc., all taken care of. The middle band of association, creativity, connection, that's taken care of too. And so the sweet spot, well, that sort of naturally stems from the base, doesn't it? If we could find that all in one place, that would be wonderful. But I wonder how many people have that opportunity. So many people, let's see if I can remember the stat. Yes, I can. It's 4 out of 10 people in the UK currently go to work and don't enjoy their day because they don't connect very well with their colleagues, because their supervisor doesn't find them assignments that immediately responds to their key skills and their natural abilities, because their clients are really unhappy with the service they provide. So 4 out of 10 people are in that place. That's 4 out of 10 who aren't authentically experiencing their working day. Yes, they're getting paid. No, they aren't getting all the other all the other benefits even that come from being completely authentically engaged. And I'm sure they would love to be. But they can find, I'm sure they can find, ways of getting fulfillment from other parts of their day. Perhaps there's some activities within the 9 to 5 bracket that they can really emphasize and de-emphasize some of the others. Sure, they'll still have peaks and troughs, but the peaks won't be as high and the troughs won't be as deep. Or they can shift the focus of their day to the bits outside of the 9 to 5. They make family so that the work is just the work. The family, that's what they're doing it for. Or they get into some voluntary work, or they pursue a sport or leisure activity, whatever it is. There's different ways, in other words, of achieving the same end result. Wouldn't it be nice, though, to be able to do, well, 3 things, I suppose. One, always check in, be self-aware, be present, and be mindful as well, to make time for that. If it's 5 minutes in the day at the start of the day, or 10 minutes at the end of the day, always take that opportunity to check in. The second thing, write down what's occurring, journal, make sure that it's very clear to you what you're doing, what you're feeling, and how the doing and the feeling relates to your big goal. This year, I am going to achieve a promotion. I am going to pursue my ideal hobby, whatever it is. So make sure that the join is evident between what you're doing, what you're feeling, and what your goal and intention is. And the third thing to do, if there's any disconnect between how you're spending your time and how you feel about how you're spending your time, that you set yourself another related goal to go and take care of that gap. Because the longer the gap persists between what you want, especially what you want to feel, happy, engaged, enthusiastic, authentic, and what you're actually feeling, unhappy, disengaged, inauthentic, the bigger the gap and the longer it persists, the more it starts to impact you on the inside. It might not be obvious on the outside. And again, the client I was mentioning, it wasn't obvious to the world that they were unhappy and conflicted by the shift from Model A to Model B, but they were, which is why they got some coaching. The longer that gap persists and the deeper that impact goes into you, the more you're starting the spiral, really. It just doesn't serve your purpose in terms of empathy, what you put out into the world, in terms of especially the authenticity, the way you show up. If there is a gap between where you are and what you'd like to be. So find a way of tackling it. I've suggested a couple of ways in the last few minutes. Either re-center that aim within the 9 to 5, or focus it outside. But make sure you are doing something to narrow the gap, because in the great scheme of things, the longer you are unhappy, the less productive you become. It's inevitable, because you're spending time focusing on the unhappiness as opposed to enjoying what you're doing and being productive. And of course, the more unhappy you are, the less productive you are, the more disconnected you become. It's difficult to stay attached to your colleagues, to your family, to your friends, to yourself, if actually what's going on inside is a bit grim. It's all resistance, it's all grit. It's not smooth, and it's not satisfying for you. So if I was going to pull all of this together and summarize it, self-awareness is absolutely the foundation of authenticity, because if you don't know what's going on inside and you haven't got a sense of how that relates to your big goals, you can't know if you're showing up and being genuine, authentic, representing yourself in the best way possible. The longer that you don't represent yourself in the best way possible, the greater the gap between what you'd love to have and what you've actually got. And the persistence of that gap just draws in a lot of negativity. It just is an open space into which falls all of the doubt, all of the regret, denial, anger, perhaps, frustration, and have the boss you lack, the ungrateful customers, financial shortage, you haven't got the money coming in, there's a lack of abundance, all the rest of it. Very negative space. If you sense that there's a gap, the authentic thing to do, the self-aware thing to do, the be kind to yourself thing to do is to plug it. And I'll go on in the companion Hangout to this one next time to look at some of the other ways that you can take action to narrow the gap or to eliminate it, so that what you want and what you've got sit comfortably together, or even very nicely commingle, so that it's just all good from the moment you get up to the end of the day and all points in between. But that's what's on offer in the next Hangout. I hope you're very much, hope very much rather, that you've found value in this one. If you have, please like it, share it, comment as well. I'd love to know what works for you and what authenticity means for you, how you represent yourself in the fullest measure. And if you feel you're slightly awry, you're going a bit away from what you want to be doing, how do you course correct? What do you do? I'd love to know about that. I'm sure people who visit and read your comments will benefit from your thoughts as well. So don't forget to join me next time when we'll be looking at some further and deeper authenticity tools and techniques to help you achieve an awesome level of authenticity. In the meantime, I'm Roger. Thank you very much for joining me here at Experience Your Life, and I look forward to your company next time around. Cheers.